Welcome to the Fort Wayne Museum of Art's August Virtual Curators Tour of Alphonse Mucha, Master of Art Nouveau. I'm Elizabeth Kilmer, and I'll be your tour guide today. This exhibition comes to us from the Dewan Collection, and it gives us a glimpse at the full examination of Mucha's illustrious career. Support for Alphonse Mucha, Master of Art Nouveau, is provided by Hashimoto Contemporary Gallery. This exhibition is sponsored by Patricia Adsit, David L. Bell, and Janet Seward Bell, Mrs. J. Robert Edwards, Brenda and Steve Fishbaugh, Elizabeth A. Frederick, the Ladowski family, Dwayne and Carol Lupke, Stephen and Barbara McMurray, Steve and Audrey Riley, Julie Donnell and John Schoaf, Robert and Donna Streeter, and Mark and Kathy Swaim through their contributions to the 2019 FWMOA Annual Fund. Alphonse Mucha was one of the most significant artists in Europe from 1895 to 1910. He ushered in a new artistic style popularly referred to at the time as Le Style Mucha in Paris, or Art Nouveau internationally. Throughout his career, Mucha worked in a wide range of artistic endeavors, from posters and illustrations to jewelry and interior design. Today, he is most widely recognized for his posters, which often feature beautiful, seductive women who attract audiences in order to sell the products he was hired to promote. But no matter what his subject, from commercial art to history paintings, his images are filled with grandeur and mystery. Mucha worked as a struggling artist for a number of years. His youthful interest in theater and passion for drawing brought him to a job painting theatrical scenery in Vienna when he was 21. He earned the attention of a wealthy patron whose generosity allowed Mucha to study in Paris and Munich. He soon settled in Paris, where he began a struggling career producing magazines and book illustrations. In December 1894, Mucha was presented with a life-changing opportunity. He was commissioned to create a poster for the play Gismonda, starring Sarah Bernhardt. When the poster debuted January 1, 1895, it and Mucha were immediate sensations, and he became the most talked-about artist in Paris. This brought forth the new Mucha style, which would dominate the art world for a decade and become known as Art Nouveau. Before we talk more about Mucha himself, let's have a brief discussion of Art Nouveau. The style flourished from 1890 to the start of World War I in 1914, at which time the decorative elements of the style began to feel too old-fashioned and ornate. Art Nouveau works of art are noted for their luxurious beauty, often utilizing the whiplash curve, which is much like it sounds. We can see this used time and time again in Mucha's compositions through the use of floral motifs and the flowing hair of his women, which often takes on a life of its own. We will also see recurring floral and interlacing motifs, which are another common trait of Art Nouveau. This connects the movement to older artistic aesthetics such as the Rococo period, Celtic jewelry, and medieval manuscripts. The movement was used in much more than fine art and commercial art, as it was also prevalent in architecture, textiles, jewelry, and interior design. The idea was that all aspects of life, from commercial endeavors to art to the clothes you wore, should all be beautiful. In 1902, Mucha published a book featuring his designs, Documents Decoratifs, which included 72 drawings for furniture, textile patterns, jewelry, silverware, place cards, menus, and more. The first work we'll look at is Gismonda, as it put Mucha on the artistic map. As we mentioned before, this was his first foray into poster design, which would produce some of his signature works. Gismonda is a melodramatic play that tells the story of a widowed Duchess of Athens, Greece, whose advisor, Zachariah, plots to seize the duchy from her. The climax of the play features the trial of Gismonda's lover for the murder of Zachariah, even though she was the murderer. We know that Gismonda, or Bernhardt, is the star of the play, as she takes up the most room in the center of the composition. Though her costume isn't what I'd call historically accurate for the antiquity time period, it does tell us that her character is one of means. Mucha has also included in her costume the opportunity to work in Art Nouveau imagery. We see this in the delicately interlaced florals and swirls throughout the fabric. We know that she will also be victorious in her tale, as she is literally standing on top of her servant Zechariah, who is portrayed as an ugly, shadowed figure crouching below her print. La Samaritaine, another play starring Sarah Bernhardt, as the two had a long and successful professional relationship, portrays Mucha's strong narrative skills when creating a poster. The play draws inspiration from the book of John in the Bible, which tells us the story of Jesus encountering a Samaritan woman at a well and telling her that he offered a water that would quench someone's thirst for eternity. She at first thinks he is talking about literal water, but after telling her that it was spiritual and discussing details from her life that a stranger would not know, she is convinced of Jesus being the Messiah and brings everyone in her town to come and listen to him, resulting in all of them being converted to Christianity. Even without knowing the biblical story, we can infer when and where this play will take place. Hebrew lettering can be seen set into the background, which, when paired with the stars of David swirling up from the vase, tells us that our subjects are Jewish. The ancient time frame is reinforced with Sarah's classical costume and the large, ancient water jug by her side. We can see Mucha's skillful use of narration in many of his commercial posters as well. His mastery of precise poster design allowed not only the product itself to be clearly identified, but he sold more than the product. Mucha was also selling a mood or feeling which became associated with the products themselves. The first advertisement we'll look at is Cycles Perfecta. Perfecta bicycles were an English brand that was sold widely in France, and Mucha's poster can be given much of the credit for their success. We see an alluring woman relaxing atop a bicycle, but the bike itself is almost entirely obscured by her flowing hair and clothes. Her hair is down and windswept, taking on a life of its own with its whiplash swirls, and we have the impression that she herself has just enjoyed an exhilarating bike ride. By placing this woman front and center, Mucha is selling an experience. If you ride Perfecta bicycles, you can have a great time, possibly with a woman just like her. Mucha's poster for Job cigarette paper also sells an experience. His posters for Job are amongst his best known, and it's clear why. He has presented us with the ultimate seductive femme fatale. Her hair perfectly falls around her, mirroring the smoke languidly curling up from her cigarette. Quite frankly, she makes smoking look cool. And let's remember, this advertisement wasn't for cigarettes themselves, but the paper. It just so happens that Job cigarette paper was especially popular amongst women, and it's likely this poster had something to do with it. Even though the woman is front and center, Mucha has covered the rest of the composition with the word job, from the large title above her head to the smaller, repetitive use of the object's name, making it appear as a decorative wallpaper. Clearly, if you were entranced by this woman, you'd also remember exactly what she was advertising. Much like we now view Mucha's advertisements as fine art, even during his lifetime, commercial works were reprinted as fine art. We have two contemporary examples in this tour. The first work is Reverie. This print was first created as a celebratory print for the new year in 1898, but it was soon marketed as a decorative poster by the French periodical La Plume. Reverie possesses overt use of Art Nouveau imagery, as seen first in the swirling and interlacing calligraphic lines at the top of the circle which encompasses our dreaming lady. She is also surrounded by luxuriant flowers, which is mirrored in the flower crown on her head. Our alluring lady also represents another important aspect of an Art Nouveau life, daydreaming. She has surrounded herself with beauty and has paused for a moment while reading her periodical to allow herself a moment to dream. Dreams were significantly important to symbolists, who emphasized the importance of the subconscious in dreams. Many individuals who adhered to the Art Nouveau lifestyle were also symbolists, and a dreamlike quality can often be found in artwork from this era. As we can see, Mucha, an ardent symbolist himself, was no exception. Zodiac is another print that found new life as a decorative panel. Originally produced as a calendar, We can see all of the astrological signs surrounding our central lady, almost like a halo, giving the composition a mystical, spiritual quality. The woman herself wears a crown atop her flowing hair, implying that she is the zodiac queen, and her gown contains starbursts on the sleeve, further reinforcing the astrological parallels. We once again see Mucha's use of floral and calligraphic line, which are extensively used on the outer edges of the composition. These elements frame the woman and the zodiac signs, reinforcing their connection to nature and the surrounding world. While Mucha made a name for himself as a commercial artist, he was also deeply interested in his Slavic national culture. He grew up in rural Moravia listening to traditional folklore and being shaped by religious traditions, and the spirituality of each influenced him throughout his life. Even though Art Nouveau fell out of fashion as the 20th century rolled on, Mucha continued to work. Rather than continue to work in advertising, he became increasingly interested in creating works of art for his home country of Czechoslovakia and celebrating Slavic culture. The Slav Epic is a series of 20 monumental paintings illustrating the history of the Slavic people from ancient times through the modern era, and was the product of over 2 decades of work. Mucha created this poster to announce the opening of the first exhibition in Prague, at which time the entire cycle was presented to the public. In the background, shown in shades of blue, is a figure of Svantovit, the god Slav of mythology who represents the past, present, and future simultaneously, as seen with his head containing 3 different faces. It is interesting to note how his imagery changed by 1928, when this print was created. While he still has his central lady and utilizes flowers, there is much more structure to the composition. This would be the influence of Art Deco, which emphasized geometric line over the swirling whiplashes of Art Nouveau. But, even with the changes, we can still see Mucha's signature coming through. Thank you for joining us for this month's Curator's Tour of Alphonse Mucha, Master of Art Nouveau. The exhibition will be up through September 26, 2021.